Evelyn Harris woke to the soft hum of her mother's oxygen machine, a sound as familiar as her own heartbeat. At 60, she'd spent the last 5 years in this modest split-level home in suburban Atlanta, tending to her 85-year-old mother, Rose, who had dementia. The living room, once filled with family photos and Rose's vibrant laughter, now held a hospital bed, medical supplies, and the weight of unspoken sacrifices. Evelyn had poured over $80,000 of her retirement savings into Rose's care, medications, home aides, and endless doctor visits, while her siblings, Thomas and Linda, sent nothing but occasional texts and criticism from their lives in Chicago and Miami. This morning, as sunlight filtered through the magnolia tree outside, Evelyn checked Rose's chart. Her mother's eyes, once sharp with southern wit, stared blankly at the ceiling. "Morning, Mama," Evelyn whispered, adjusting the blanket. Rose didn't respond, but Evelyn held her hand, finding comfort in the routine. She'd given up her nursing career early to care for Rose full-time, canceling vacations, skipping book club, and dipping into her savings to keep the house running. Thomas, 58, a corporate lawyer, and Linda, 55, a real estate agent, always had excuses: busy careers, kids in college, tight budgets. Evelyn never pushed back. She was the eldest, the responsible one, the one who stayed in Georgia to hold the family together after their father's death 20 years ago. But today something felt off. Evelyn's phone buzzed with a voicemail from Thomas, his voice clipped. "Ev, we need to talk about Mom's care. Call me back." No warmth, no "how are you?" She ignored it, focusing on Rose's breakfast. She'd deal with her siblings later. They never understood the grind of caregiving, the sleepless nights, the emotional toll, the way dementia stole Rose piece by piece. Evelyn had learned to manage it alone, with occasional help from her neighbor, Marla, a retired teacher who brought casseroles and gossip from the neighborhood. By noon, Evelyn was exhausted, her hands trembling from lifting Rose. She'd been feeling off herself lately, dizzy spells, fatigue. She chalked it up to stress. As she sat to sip coffee, the doorbell rang. Marla stood on the porch, her face tight with concern. "Evelyn, you okay? You look pale." "Just tired," Evelyn said, forcing a smile. "Mama's having a rough day." Marla hesitated. "I saw a car parked outside last night late, not one I recognized, just thought you should know." Evelyn frowned. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly families and retirees. "Probably just someone visiting," she said, but unease settled in her chest. She thanked Marla and returned to Rose, who was mumbling incoherently. Evelyn's phone buzzed again. Thomas, this time a text. "We're coming to Atlanta tomorrow. Serious talk needed about Mom's estate." Estate. The word hit like a slap. Rose's house, her savings, a modest $500,000 tied up in investments and property, was all she had left. Evelyn had never thought of it as an estate. It was Mama's life, her legacy of Sunday suppers and church choir rehearsals. Why were Thomas and Linda suddenly interested? They hadn't visited in over a year. The next day, Evelyn's siblings arrived in a rented SUV, Thomas in a pressed suit, Linda in designer sunglasses. They hugged Rose stiffly, avoiding her vacant gaze, and sat at the kitchen table where Evelyn had laid out sweet tea and cornbread, a southern courtesy she couldn't shake. Thomas got straight to the point. "Ev, you're burning out. We're worried about you and Mom. Her care's too much for one person." "I've managed fine," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "What's this really about?" Linda leaned forward, her manicured nails tapping the table. Mom's house, her savings, they need proper management. We're thinking a professional caregiver, maybe a facility. You can't keep doing this alone. Evelyn's heart sank. A facility? Rose had begged to stay home, where she'd raised her kids and hosted barbecues. Mama wants to be here. I'm handling it. Are you? Thomas said, his lawyer voice sharp. You look exhausted, Ev, and frankly, we're concerned about your judgment. You've spent a fortune on Mom's care without consulting us. Evelyn's hands clenched. A fortune? You mean my savings? $80,000, Thomas. Where were you when I paid for her meds, her aids, her hospital stays? Linda's eyes narrowed. We're family, Ev. That money, for all of us, for Mom's legacy. We think it's time we take over her finances. The room spun. Evelyn gripped the table, her vision blurring. Before she could respond, a sharp pain shot through her chest and she collapsed. She woke in a hospital bed, monitors beeping. A doctor, a kind-eyed woman named Dr. Patel, explained she'd had a minor stroke, likely triggered by stress and high blood pressure. You need rest, Ms. Harris. No more overexertion. Evelyn's first thought was Rose. My mother, who's with her? Your siblings arranged a temporary caregiver, Dr. Patel said. Focus on yourself for now. When Thomas and Linda visited, their concern felt rehearsed. Ev, this is what we meant, Thomas said. You're not well. We've filed for guardianship over Mom's estate to protect her, and you. Guardianship? Evelyn's voice cracked. You're saying I'm not fit to care for her. Linda's smile was cold. We're saying you're not thinking clearly. We've talked to a lawyer. It's for the best. Evelyn's world tilted. Her siblings weren't just questioning her caregiving. They were questioning her sanity. She thought of the $80,000 she'd spent, the nights she'd sat by Rose's bed, the family dinners she'd cooked hoping they'd visit. And now they were using her stroke to paint her as incompetent. Back home after a week, Evelyn found a stranger in her house, a caregiver hired by Thomas who barely spoke to Rose. The house felt violated, her sanctuary tainted. Worse, she discovered her siblings had accessed Rose's bank account, withdrawing $10,000 for care expenses. Evelyn's anger crystallized. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for Rose's dignity. She called Marla, who recommended a lawyer, Daniel Carter, a former patient Evelyn had nursed through cancer treatment years ago. Daniel, now 45 and running a small firm, met her at a coffee shop in Decatur. His warm smile eased her nerves. Evelyn, this smells like elder financial abuse, he said, reviewing her documents. Your siblings are leveraging your stroke to gain control of your mother's assets. We need to prove your competence and their motives. How? Evelyn asked, her voice small. They're saying I'm unstable because I had a stroke. Daniel leaned forward. We'll get a medical evaluation to confirm your recovery, and we'll dig into their financial records. If they've misused Rose's money, that's our leverage. Evelyn joined a caregiver support group at her church. A stone's throw from the Peachtree Road Farmers Market. There, she met women like her, exhausted, overlooked, but fierce. One, a retired accountant named Gloria, offered to review Rose's bank statements. Gloria's findings were a gut punch. Thomas and Linda had transferred $20,000 to their own accounts, claiming it was for future care costs. They also hired a real estate appraiser to value Rose's house, hinting at plans to sell it. Evelyn's fury grew, but so did her resolve. She underwent a neurological evaluation with Dr. Patel, who confirmed her stroke was minor and her cognitive function intact. Armed with this, Daniel filed a counterclaim, accusing Thomas and Linda of financial exploitation and requesting a restraining order to keep them from Rose's accounts. The legal battle unfolded in a Fulton County courthouse, a gray building that felt as heavy as Evelyn's heart. Thomas and Linda's lawyer, a slick man named Mr. Vaughn, painted Evelyn as a stressed-out caregiver who'd mismanaged Rose's funds. "Ms. Harris has depleted her mother's savings without family consent," he argued, presenting receipts of Evelyn's $80,000 in payments as evidence of recklessness. Daniel's rebuttal was surgical. He presented Dr. Patel's evaluation, Gloria's financial analysis, and testimonies from Marla and the support group, who described Evelyn's meticulous care for Rose. He revealed Thomas and Linda's unauthorized withdrawals, shocking the courtroom. "This isn't about care," Daniel said. "It's about greed." Evelyn took the stand, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I spent $80,000 because Mama deserved to stay in her home, surrounded by love. My siblings never offered a dime or a day of help. Now they want her money, not her well-being." The judge, a woman with sharp eyes, ruled in Evelyn's favor. "Ms. Harris has demonstrated full competence and dedication to her mother's care. The plaintiff's actions suggest financial motives, not concern. Guardianship is denied, and a restraining order is granted against further interference with Ms. Rose Harris's estate." Evelyn exhaled, tears streaming down her face. She won not just the case, but her dignity. Back home, she fired the hired caregiver and resumed Rose's care, now with Marla and Gloria's help. She changed the locks, updated Rose's will to protect her assets, and started attending church again, finding solace in the choir's hymns. One evening, as she sat with Rose, Evelyn noticed her mother's hand squeeze hers, a rare moment of connection. "I'm here, Mama," she whispered. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt unburdened. She'd lost her siblings, but she'd gained herself, a woman who'd learned that love couldn't be bought, only given freely. Months later, Evelyn sold a portion of Rose's investments to fund a local caregiver support program, naming it after her mother. She never heard from Thomas or Linda again, but she didn't need to. Her new family, Marla, Gloria, and the women from church, filled her home with laughter and sweet tea, proving that love, not money, was the true legacy.